So you are always have to start with reality and then add on layer of exaggeration and whatever you want to do with that content. The kind of conversation that people have that यार ये तो करना ही पड़ेगा मतलब करना ही पड़ेगा क्या मतलब होता है.
Even when you exceed expectations, that becomes the new normal the following year, and you're expected to do even better than that.
So now when I put out a piece of content which does not get as much traction as my earlier pieces have got, I feel bad about it.
Hi, everybody. So today we are with Arjun Rana, a comedian, a digital content creator, a writer, and actor. Thank you so much for being with us today, Arjun. So really means a lot.
Thank you so much, Prakash, for having me.
Okay, so thank you so much for doing this. I wanted to begin by asking, since a lot of your audience consists of working professionals, what sort of resonates with them the most? What kind of patterns do you see?
I think the most that people are able to relate with when it comes to my content is the authenticity and the how close they are to the day-to-day life reality when people are working in corporate culture. So most of the compliment that I get when I meet people during my shows or in general in life who has consumed my content and they like my content. So one feedback and one compliment that I always get is that they feel very real. It feels something like that either the person themselves have experienced somewhere or they have seen in their work life someone going through a similar situation, coming across a similar kind of character, going through a similar kind of situation. So basically, the authenticity is something which strikes when it comes to my content and the people who consume my content. And besides that, I try to make it funny, but there is a very basic rule of any joke writing that if you start with some real scenario and then do the exaggeration, then it works best. So, for example, even if you see a very hypothetical movie like Jurassic Park, the
Yes.
premise is always started with the truth that okay, there was a scientist who worked on a DNA. They make it believable, and only then you buy the fact that okay, dinosaurs can actually exist in this world. So you are always have to start with reality and then add on layer of exaggeration and whatever you want to do with that content.
That's very interesting to make it based in reality. So since a lot of your jokes are based on experiential aspects, what are some experiences that we have come to sort of recognize as normal, but we should in fact recognize that they are not normal? They're just common, but they're not normal.
See, a lot of people think that if they have gotten into a job, especially unlike any other kind of job in India, this engineering related jobs, IT jobs, corporate jobs, which a person can get after completing a 4 year graduation course, we know by the name of BTech. So this path itself is very easy as compared to any other path. For example, if I want to become a CA, I have to struggle a lot even to get the admission into a good college. If I have to become a doctor, I have to study for 10, 12, and maybe more number of years. But BTech is the only thing where I just study for 4 years and I'm employable and I can get a good, decent job which can run my family. So people have started to take this skill as something for granted. This is something which is very easily available. If I'm getting into a job into an MNC, then they are doing some kind of favor to me. Maybe I'm not providing that much of value to them. So everyone who is getting into a good MNC and into a good position, they always feel some element of कि मेरे ऊपर किसी ने तो एहसान कर दिया, आई डोंट डिजर्व दिस, सम काइंड ऑफ imposter syndrome that maybe I don't deserve this, I'm not that skillful, but still I'm getting such a good salary, I'm getting such a good package. So whether they want it or not, but it becomes normal when their superiors expect them to stretch working hours, when their superiors ask them to work a late night shift or come over weekends and hamper their normal regular personal life in order to give more weightage to work. And people who are working in the scenario, they somehow consider this as normal. It is not normal. It's just because you consider yourself not deserving of that position, that's why you think that okay, I will have to stretch out a little bit, I have to go an extra mile in order to justify my salary, in order to prove myself in some way or the other. That does not mean that this should be considered as normal. But I've seen it on multiple occasions, even when my colleagues and my peers, when we are sitting during lunchtime or at the tea break, the kind of conversation that people have that यार ये तो करना ही पड़ेगा मतलब करना ही पड़ेगा क्या क्या मतलब होता है, this should not be considered normal if you are stretched out of your way for any work whatsoever, first of all, that should be occasional, and that to be compensated for. You should be given overtime, you should be given compensatory off, you should be properly compensated for that extra even of 1 hour of work. But people have, made this so normal that I feel guilty if I am leaving office at 6 p.m., which is the normal scheduled off work hours. If I am leaving office at 6 p.m., somehow everyone will look at me in a way that I am doing some kind of crime. So this is something which is beyond my comprehension. How do people live in such a scenario where such kind of practices are made normal over the period of time, and no one is asking questions about it, no one is protesting against it.
I think this bit about, the new normal sort of ties in even with our performance reviews, right? Because even when you exceed expectations, that becomes the new normal the following year. And you're expected to do even better than that. So,
Okay.
you even mentioned imposter syndrome. So, how do we not tie our self-worth to, these performance reviews and all of that?
That is something which is impossible to achieve in a country like India. Reason being, we are so densely populated. We are, so heavily into the market of competition that if I am doing n number of activities and because of that I'm getting some kind of reward or remuneration, and that word spreads across my team, across my floor, across my department, my organization, then that benchmark will be shattered by hundreds of people in within next 1 week, because people will know that okay, doing this, achieving this will give me this kind of return. So I will also, people are so competitive that you'll always have to keep your game at the top of everyone else. And when it becomes this kind of rat race that I have to be better than everyone else, then there is no end to it. It becomes impossible to prove your worth in terms of numbers and statistics. So I personally feel that getting into this mess of achieving 1% extra hike, achieving one term early promotion, it is something which is not meant for me. This is my personal opinion. I am not into that kind of race. I want a laid back, maybe lethargic, maybe work life balance. A life. I want to give time to my family. I want to give time to watch movies. I want to give time to play badminton. Whatever I want to do in life, I want to give time to that. And because of that, if I'm losing on 1.5% of extra hike, extra promotion, whatever it is, I'm ready to compromise that. Although I believe that that should not be the case. If I'm working 8 hours or whatever is the stipulated number of hours in my organization, if I'm working that number of hours and giving my 100%, giving results, then I should be as eligible for promotion or hike or any good thing that company has to offer as any other person who is working 14 hours. But that is not that people consider normal. People just compare everything in number of with number of hours, or the kind of effort the person is putting in. So I'm okay with that. I've made my peace that if I'm losing on one front, I'm gaining on the other front. I'm getting time for my personal thing. So I'm happy with that. So, unfortunately, in a country like India, you cannot detach yourself with all these matrices, all these measurement systems, because everyone else is a part of the system, and breaking this kind of system takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. Maybe someday, 50 years, 100 years down the line, when this with this Gen Z generation, thinking in another direction, they are standing up for what is right. So maybe after a few years, this change will take place. But right now, I don't think it's possible.
So, since we've spoken about, impact metrics in quantitative terms, while you said you don't see it happening anytime soon, but if we had to kind of nudge corporates in the right direction, do you think they should incorporate more qualitative metrics as well? And what should they be? Especially, with AI and everything, and everybody is talking about the sort of incremental value over and above AI that they bring to the company to establish their relevance. So, what sort of qualitative metrics should we be looking at?
I believe is beyond my understanding or beyond my knowledge or skill set, whatever I've gathered so far in my life of last 43 years. I am not in the capacity to answer this question any satisfactory way. But I'll give you an analogy. All these things are qualitative. When it comes to quantity, we still have predefined, measurable matrices which people can work with. But when it comes to quality, it is very subjective. What is quality to me might be garbage for you. Speaking in terms of what kind of content you consume on YouTube, you might be consuming the content which is very intellectual as per your definition, as per your sensibilities. But if I'm looking at the same content, it might be time waste for me. So quality is very subjective, and there cannot be one standard benchmark, one standard ruler that rules the standards of quality for every each individual. So this is really, really very, very difficult. But having said that, of course, we can have certain rules, certain basic parameters. For example, like we have censor board in India to do some kind of basic censorship of what kind of material could be consumed by the people in this country. So that basic criteria of quality control can still be implemented, can still be achieved even in corporates or anywhere else. That a certain level of integrity, a certain level of quality should be maintained. But what is good and what is not as good is really really subjective. So no, I don't think that it is even remotely possible to have a standardized mechanism of qualifying uh, any amount of work on any effort, any number of hours that people are putting in terms of quality, because it's very very different for everyone.
It is definitely challenging. So when it comes to your own work as well, we shifting gears to a sort of non-corporate life. Uh, Metrics do play a role in content creation as well, right? Because of the analytics, the number of likes, views, etc. How do you sort of detach yourself from that?
I am not able to, to be really honest, because
Okay.
of two reasons. First is कि, when I initially started getting traction on my content, that was the only thing. The number of views, the number of likes. At one point in time, I had to switch off my notifications because it was disturbing my sleep cycle. So I was getting that many notifications every second. Okay, so that was a real motivation of me pushing myself into this field, that this is something that I like. This is something that I have been striving for so many years. And now finally I'm getting traction after so many years. So this is something which I considered as my reward. Okay. And once you are used to getting certain kind of reward in a certain way, then going back from that point, downhill is really, really depressing. It's very demotivating. So now when I put out a piece of content which does not get as much traction as my earlier pieces have got, I feel bad about it. So at a personal level, I look forward to maintain a certain level of basic metric values in terms of views, like comments, or the people are interacting with it, the engagement rate. I personally feel, and the second reason the why this is important is because the higher the engagement that I get, higher will be my price in terms of what I can earn from brand deals, what value I can provide to different brands. It's not only the matter of how much do I quote for my services, it's also what value can I give them in return. If someone is investing X amount of money, trusting in me, and I'm investing my 2 3 days of worth of time creating a content for them, it should give them that worth in return as well. So keeping these two factors in mind, views and all these matrices are really, really important. Not only for me, I think it should be important for any creator. If any creator is saying that I'm just doing it for the fun of it, and I don't even look at my dashboard, he's probably lying. He or she is probably lying, or else they are not content creators. They just got lucky, and they've got following, but they are not content creators in the real sense. Because every content creator should actually keep a check on these matrices, and they should try to maximize for themselves, for their ego boost, and as well as for getting into a good earning potential capacity as well.
But since you mentioned, you were getting a lot of notifications and you had to sort of turn them off because, it was interrupting your sleep cycle and everything. So people sort of romanticize the work of content creation, thinking it gives you all the freedom in the world. But in some ways, it does keep you tied throughout the day, because not just in terms of notifications and impact, but even in terms of creation, where you sort of you have that filter when you're observing things around you and you're like, okay, this could be a good content piece, rather than just consuming it for the sake of consuming it in a relaxed way. So how do you deal
Mhm.
with that out of office pressure? Mhm.
Pressure is something which a person feels irrespective of whatever work they are doing. Pressure is something a person feels when they do something which they don't want to do. For example, if Virat Kohli would have wanted to become a very good high class Python coder and his father has forced him to become a cricketer, then even playing cricket for India and earning so much because of that would not bring happiness to Virat Kohli because he wanted to do something else. He wanted to write code and now he has to forcefully play cricket, which is not the case. I'm just making a hypothetical situation over here. But if a person gets to do something which he is happily doing, he has always wanted to do. Just excuse me for using this pronoun he over here. I belong to the 80s generation. I've still not gotten myself used to using they or gender neutral
That's
words.
all right.
Okay, हम लोग when we were in school, even our teachers used to use he, him, his for most of the time. So that is my habit since so many years. But I don't intend to, show any inclination towards men in as a gender or promote patriarchy. That's not my intention. Just making it clear. Yeah. If a person is doing something which they like, which they don't feel bored of, then I don't think there is any pressure. When it comes to content creation was not my first choice of creative work. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an actor, for which I had been doing my homework, my groundwork, my preparation from many years. But this is content creation is something which clicked and made my way possible and made certain things easier for me, even for the things that I wanted to do. For example, stand-up comedy. So because now people know me because of my content, I am able to perform stand-up comedy at various locations in India because now people know me. They come for my shows. Okay, so it has made a way for me to do something which I had always wanted to do, which I loved doing. And content creation itself is a creative process. You think about something, you consume a lot of other people's content, and you take inspiration. Then make it a structured. Because my writing process, my creative content process is very meticulous. I don't just pick up my phone and make any content that comes to my mind. I am not making get ready with me. I am not making anything which does not require scripting, which does not require in-depth analysis. I give a lot of effort to writing and then structuring, then breaking it down into three act structures. Every piece of content should have a good beginning, should have a good middle, should have a good high point end. So I give it a lot of effort, which is the process that I always wanted to do. I always loved it. I loved writing. I have studied writing. I am a scholar of script writing. I'm a scholar of so many things that are related to writing in general. And I'm able to do that thing throughout the day, throughout the night, and I'm able to earn a living because of that. So I don't think that I feel any kind of pressure because I'm getting to do what I always wanted to do. And even if I'm spending more time when I was in corporate, I used to spend around 12 to 14 hours on an average every day on my job, which was really depressing because I never wanted to do that. But now, even if I'm spending 18 hours a day, sometimes doing this, what I love doing, I'm happy because this is something which gives me happiness, which keeps me busy, which keeps me engaged, and at the end of the day, also is giving me money. So why not?
So, since you mentioned writing as well, to address the elephant in the room, for many writers, writer's block is something that affects them from time to time. So, how do you deal with that?
So as I mentioned, see, I have gone through a very structured and how should I put it, well-defined process of learning writing as a creative process. So the writing flair was always there when I was a child, but when I grew up, I pursued professional courses into learning writing as a creative process. That story writing is different from script writing. Playwriting is different from another form of writing. So I have learned these processes. So when you go through a structured way of learning a process, you also go through how to overcome writer's block, how to overcome these kind of situations. So there are various tricks and techniques that a professional writer can apply to their working process if they come across any writer's block or any situation where they are stuck. Are trying to find a way. So there are a number of tricks and techniques available which we can use as tools, which I normally use as tools. Starting with the very simple basic technique is that you try to sit with 3 4 like-minded people who you consider on the same wavelength, same frequency. You share ideas with them and ask for opinions. So this is a very basic exercise that almost everyone who is into writing does sometime or the other when they are stuck. They ask for ideas from people who are in their friend circle or in their peer circle. And then there is another exercise, different 10, 15 exercises that we can apply, we can explore, and one way or the other we always find out a way. So one good thing is when we are writing something, we are not under kind of any deadline pressure that I have to do this by 5 p.m. Even if it is getting done by tomorrow or a week later, that's fine, because at the end of the day the product has to be really good, not how soon I can create that. So that deadline pressure, when it vanishes away, then quality automatically improves, because now I get time to, I can sleep over it, I can discuss it with friends, I can do n number of things with it and come up with the best possible solution. But sometimes when it is time bound, when I'm writing for some client, when I'm writing for some brand, when it is time bound, then I use apply these kind of technique, and most of the time I'm able to overcome the writer's block, because these tricks and techniques work. Someone very well educated must have written these, so these work most of the time.
So, in some ways, processification is actually beneficial. It's, we do tend to sort of label it as annoying, the typical documentation and processifying work. Uh, but it does actually help even in, creative professions to a great extent, isn't it?
First of all, anything that you pursue in life, even if you are playing some kind of sport or anything, I think two things that matters a lot is, first is taking that thing professionally, seriously. Just take it a step more than treating it as a hobby. If you are trying to make a profession out of it, make it professional. And secondly, discipline. If you're doing anything with discipline, you will get results. It is as simple as that. Even if you are trying to lose weight, you are trying to gain weight, you are trying to build muscle, whatever it is in life, if you're doing it in a disciplined fashion, you will definitely get results.
And speaking of discipline, what would you like your viewers to remember on a Monday morning?
See, a life is much larger than a day or a couple of hours. Your entire life will have innumerable number of happy and sad moments. So if a happy moment cannot motivate you to attain nirvana in that very moment, then how come a bad moment can somehow demotivate you enough to take some drastic step and do something which you should not be doing, or ruin your mood as well as the mood of people around you. So when we do not treat our happiness with grand ecstasy, then why do we treat our sadness and sorrows with grand depression? It's just a part of life. It is time. It will go away. Monday morning will go away. Monday evening will come. Tuesday morning will come. Next week will come. Life is so beautiful, and there is so much to look forward to. See, this is easier said than done. I'm sure that a person going through a certain thing or certain in a certain frame of mind, be it Monday morning or any other phase in life, if they are not feeling good about something, then my words will not make a sudden change in them, then and they will start feeling good about them. It is not going to happen. But yeah, try to inculcate it as a philosophy, as a motto of your life. Try to recite this phrase again and again, that this is just time, it will pass away. Sooner or later, if you get into this philosophy of life, that nothing is big enough than life, then you will at some point in time you will start to enjoy even the small moments. I always promote in my shows as well. Whenever I'm performing, after the show, I take last 2 3 minutes to address to people and ask a couple of questions, and do a little survey, that when do we feel happy? Why do we keep on waiting for big events? That when my son will get married, I will dance in his wedding. I mean, you can dance today. Just put on the music that you like and dance. Enjoy this very moment. If rain is, if you can see the rain from your window and you're feeling happy about it, just spread this happiness across everyone around you. Try to enjoy the small moments in life, and when you start doing it, and when you make this as a part of your life, you will see that sad moments will slowly and gradually they will start to disappear, because even if they are there, you will not give them that much of attention that they don't deserve.
This was beautiful, and I love how we've reached the top of Maslow's hierarchy, addressing even nirvana and self actualization. And I couldn't think of going beyond that. So, thank you so much for your inspirational message and for doing this once again. Really means a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Prakash ji. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you.